A new police chief, Richard Nelson, arrives at his precinct in plain clothes, blending in to observe his officers without them knowing who he is. His goal is to see their true behavior in a real, unfiltered environment. However, things take a dramatic turn when Officer Daniels, a white cop, spits in Richard's face, thinking he's just an ordinary man. This shocking moment sets the stage for the big reveal, where Richard unveils his identity as the new chief, ready to confront the toxic culture in the department. Richard Nelson, the newly appointed police chief, enters his precinct with a strategic plan to observe the officers in their natural environment. He deliberately chooses to wear plain clothes, nothing that would signal his position of authority, so that no one recognizes him as the new chief. This decision is crucial because it allows Richard to see how the officers interact with one another and with their environment without the facade of formal introductions or rehearsed behavior. By blending in, he can assess the true culture of the precinct, free from the influence of his title or the expectations that come with it. This is especially important because Richard knows that the department has a history of misconduct, and he wants to identify the real dynamics and underlying problems before taking any action. As he walks through the precinct, Richard carefully observes the officers. He watches them chat casually with one another, interact at their desks, and go about their duties without any particular attention paid to him. His presence goes unnoticed until the confrontation with Officer Daniels, showing how well his plan is working. The scene sets a tone of quiet tension, as Richard's observations begin to reveal deeper issues within the precinct that will soon be addressed. This subtle, behind-the-scenes approach highlights Richard's leadership style, emphasizing careful observation over hasty judgment. Richard, having spent the morning observing the officers without them knowing his true identity, is suddenly confronted by Officer Daniels, a white officer who takes immediate offense to his presence. Daniels, sensing Richard's unfamiliarity, mocks him with a condescending tone, assuming that he is just another civilian or outsider. He orders Richard to leave, displaying his arrogance and lack of respect for anyone he deems inferior. However, the situation escalates when Daniels, driven by his prejudice and sense of superiority, spits in Richard's face in front of other officers. This action is not only disrespectful but also symbolic of the deep racial and power imbalances within the department. The other officers, witnessing this, react with laughter, further underlining the toxic culture of bullying and prejudice that has been allowed to fester. Despite the humiliation, Richard maintains his composure, which speaks volumes about his leadership and strength of character. Instead of reacting impulsively or with anger, he calmly wipes his face with a handkerchief, showing that he will not be baited into a physical confrontation. His decision to walk away without a direct response is a strategic move. It silently conveys that he is above such childish provocations and is focused on the bigger picture, confronting the systemic issues within the department. This moment also foreshadows the dramatic shift that is to come in Richard's leadership, as he is about to take control and address the department's deep-rooted problems. After enduring the disrespect from Officer Daniels, Richard Nelson steps into the meeting room where the officers are gathered. At this moment, Richard finally reveals his true identity as the new police chief. The revelation is not just about his title, but about his authority and the changes he intends to bring to the precinct. The officers, who had been unaware of his position, are stunned into silence. They are now faced with the reality that the man they had mocked and humiliated is, in fact, their new leader. This revelation makes them uncomfortable, especially Officer Daniels, who realizes too late that he has disrespected the very person who now holds his career in his hands. His earlier arrogance and assumption that Richard was just an outsider are exposed as a serious misjudgment. Daniel's shock and the discomfort of the other officers signal the shift in power dynamics. Richard, in a calm yet authoritative tone, addresses the behavior he witnessed earlier, the bullying, the prejudice, and the disrespect. He makes it clear that such actions are no longer acceptable under his leadership. The officers' uneasy reactions serve as a powerful moment of reflection. Richard's message is unambiguous. Changes are coming, and they will be enforced with integrity and respect. This moment not only underscores his leadership but also sets the stage for the reforms that will follow, signaling the end of tolerance for misconduct within the department. Richard Nelson takes immediate and decisive action to address the toxic culture within the precinct. After revealing himself as the new chief, he stresses the importance of respect, making it clear that it is the foundation of law enforcement. He emphasizes that respect is not optional whether officers are interacting with colleagues, civilians, or anyone else. It must be upheld at all times. Richard's message is clear. Anyone who cannot or will not follow this rule will face consequences. To drive home the point, Richard takes swift action against Officer Daniels, who has been the embodiment of the department's issues. He suspends Daniels immediately, sending a strong message that disrespect and misconduct will no longer be tolerated. This suspension is not just a punishment for Daniels but a statement to the entire department that such behavior will have serious repercussions. Richard's decision to suspend Daniels also reflects his commitment to accountability. He is not just addressing one individual's actions but sending a larger message about the department's culture. This act of holding Daniels accountable marks the beginning of a broader effort to root out the toxic behaviors within the precinct and establish a new standard of professionalism and integrity under Richard's leadership. The officers are now fully aware that things are changing, and those who refuse to adapt will face consequences. Richard Nelson's leadership begins to take effect as the precinct starts transforming in the weeks following his initial actions. The atmosphere gradually shifts, and officers who once mocked or undermined him now begin to respect his authority. This change is not instant, but Richard's unwavering commitment to integrity and accountability sets the tone for the department's future. Some officers, including those who had been complicit in the toxic culture, start to reflect on their own behavior. They recognize their mistakes and the negative impact of their actions on the team and the community. Instead of facing reprimands or hostility, Richard encourages them to improve, offering them a path to redemption. His leadership is not about punishment but about fostering growth and creating a culture of respect and responsibility. Richard's approach emphasizes that change is not just about enforcing rules but also about inspiring others to do better. By acknowledging the flaws within the department and supporting officers in their efforts to grow, he cultivates an environment where personal accountability and mutual respect become central values. The precinct, though still far from perfect, begins to feel different, as Richard's influence starts to reshape the department from the inside out, promoting a positive shift in attitudes and behavior. Richard Nelson attends a community event where he meets a young boy who expresses distrust in the police, believing they don't care about people like him. Richard listens attentively and assures the boy that things will change, highlighting his commitment to rebuilding trust with the community. By the end of his first year, the precinct has made significant improvements. Officers who couldn't adapt are gone, and the culture is shifting toward respect and accountability. However, Richard remains aware that the journey is far from complete, knowing there's still much work ahead to fully restore faith and integrity within the department.